Hello guys and welcome. In this video tutorial I'll teach you two interesting features of WordPress that require additional plugins to work, but two who are in my opinion overlooked. One of them is activity tracking and the other one is WordPress user role management. When it comes to activity tracking, imagine you are a site owner who's wondering what's happened with his website behind the scenes while he's absent. Let's say someone installed a plugin and your site is suddenly slowing down. Let's say some posts suddenly disappeared and nobody knows why. The culprit of that situation is gone. With activity tracking, you'll be able to figure out what happened and when at exact point of time, and you'll be able to identify who was responsible for whatever happened here. I guess that this feature might come in handy to site owners who run a huge business, to gigantic blogs with full of editors, or simply to single business owners who want to check out if something happened, let's say they were hacked or not. This is where activity tracking could be used and where it comes in handy. When it comes to user role management, I think that the default WordPress user roles could be expanded upon or edited, and I have a proposal for you to use a free plugin to configure those roles by yourself. Let's say you guys have two administrators on the website, and the owner of the website doesn't want the other administrator of the website to edit users, right? Because you are the owner of the website, you want to make sure that only you have the right to assign new users and you are the one to pick those user roles. By default, this is not possible with WordPress, and in this video tutorial I'll show you how to do so manually and how to configure extra user roles by yourself and how to create new members by yourself with limited user capabilities. So, for the purpose of this tutorial, I've created two users, one of them being me, the site owner, and the other one being another administrator who's basically me version 2. And as you can see, there's a lot of room to mess something up here, not to say to fuck something up. And I'll give you an overview on what will happen if I'll make any edits. Let's say we'll go to the plugins, and the bad party here, I'll disable one of the plugins. Let's say we don't need let's say we'll disable this one. Right, the plugin is gone and some of the website is broken right now. I'm not gonna give you a real example what, but it's up to you to figure out. Then let's say we'll update that plugin. I did that against the will of the site owner, and I did that because I had a feeling that this would come in handy. In the end, disabling that plugin would mess up the website and would prevent some of the plugins working. So let's enable that plugin again. And then I'm done with my work. I made some mistake. The site crashed for a while. Some important functionality wasn't working, right? And then I log in as me, the site owner, and I am logging in to the activity log to check what had happened while I was absent. And as you can see, I'm seeing that the other administrator deactivated one of the plugins, right? I can see the IP he's been logged in from. I can see what happened. The context is the version of the plugin. The meta is the name of the plugin. And I see that he's updated mailpod, which I wanted to keep out of date because I know that my mailpod in this example would break my website. And then I see that he reactivated the plugin. He activated the plugin that he's deactivated before. There's been 1 minute it took him only 1 minute to perform those actions, but the site was broken for 1 minute, which I am not happy with. Thanks to the activity log plugin, I am certain who was the culprit here, and even though he could not admit that he was the one to make that mistakes, I am certain that he did that. Obviously, it could have been his wife, his cat, his dog, or his daughter, but then it's still his responsibility for what had happened. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make sure that he won't be able to make those edits himself, because I don't want this situation to happen ever again. And now in the second part of the tutorial I'll show you how to do it. But first, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the plugin I'm using here. As you can see, this is the URL of the plugin. It's called Activity Log Monitor and Record User Changes. It's pretty easy to install and pretty easy to use, and as the authors say, if you want to monitor and track your WordPress website activity, find out exactly who does what on your WordPress website with this plugin. Activity Log is like an airplane's blog that logs every action in the WordPress admin and lets you see exactly what users are doing on your website. So if someone is trying to hack your website, when a post was published and who published it, if a plugin or a theme was activated, or if there's any suspicious admin activity. This is when the plugin comes in handy. Obviously, to do so, you have to go to the plugins, you have to add new plugin. You can either download it from WordPress.org by downloading the plugin. You'll see the full link to that plugin but at the end of my article, or you can simply use the WordPress plugin installer and search for that specific plugin. What's interesting here is that you can filter those entries by what had happened. I imagine if you have a lot of users, you might want to filter some of the data to faster find something. You can change the topic. In my case, I was interested in the plugins. You can check what specific users have been doing that stuff. You can take a look on what happened today, yesterday, week, month, so you can limit the results to a specific need of your website, which I think is very handy. Now if you take a look at some other information here, you'll see that context applies to profile, core, plugin version, session, and stuff as such. There's plenty of more things to see here, but first some actions have to happen, right? And I think that this plugin is really interesting to use. It doesn't bloat the database, and it gives you an overview on what is happening behind the scenes on your website. If you go to the settings tab here, you can keep the logs for 30 days, which I think is optimal. As the authors say, it's not recommended to keep the logs forever because they may bloat your website, and I guess that makes sense. If you want to keep file login logs, keep them. I'm using a different plugin to keep that, so I don't want to keep them. If you want to keep the email logs, you can also keep them. It depends on your privacy settings, on what country you live in, what are the local regulations. You might want to disable that. You can change the IP detection through different means. Since I am on a Cloudflare, I can use HTTP CF connecting IP, which will be more precise than remote address. Right, as you can see, if you're using Cloudflare, select this one. Alright, and then you can delete those activities if you feel that your website is bloated or nothing suspicious has happened. So let's save those changes right now. And basically this covers the part related to the Activity Log plugin. Imagine different case scenarios, right? In this part of the tutorial, I'll show you how to make sure that this situation that I've presented before won't be happening. As in, let's say the Raffle2 user will not be able to activate, update, or deactivate any of the plugins because I wasn't satisfied with what had happened. To do so, you have to use the membership and user role editor plugin, which I recommend to you because it's easy to use, it's simple, and it gives you an ability to control what happens. As you can see, there are a number of features here. You can edit user roles, you can edit, create, and delete roles, as well as capabilities for those roles. Users can have multiple roles. Make sure you can deny capabilities to specific user roles, you can clone roles and stuff as such. It's a really powerful plugin. But for the purpose of my tutorial, I want to make sure that Raffle2 has no access to the plugin activation, deactivation. He can't do anything about the plugins, right? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go to the members section here, which appears once you install the plugin. I am going to go to the roles. and I'm going to clone the administrator role. Once I clone the administrator role, I will see that there's an administrator clone role created. Then I'm going to hit the edit button on that role, and then I'll see that there's a new screen which allows me to specifically grant or deny a specific section in the user role. Now, what I want to do is I want to go to the plugins, and I want to make sure that all those privileges are denied for that specific user. Let's go ahead. Now, administrator clone can do anything that administrator can, but he can't manage plugins at all. Now then, if I go to the users and I'll take a look at all of the users. What this spam? Where the spam is coming from? Nice value of the USD, by the way. And then if I go to the raffle tool, I'll make sure that his use, and once I scroll at the bottom, I'll make sure that his user role is administrator clone, right? Previously he was an administrator, right now he's an administrator clone. Now then, if I switch back to raffle tool, I'll see, once I reload the page, I'll see that he can no longer access plugins. But let's say he remembered the link to the plugins section. Let's say this is the correct link. Right, I'm gonna type it in directly to the browser, and here's what happens. He will see an information that he's not allowed to access this page. And this solution saves us the trouble of checking the activity log, because we've prevented one situation from happening. I think that this plugin may come in handy to those of you who are upset with what your administrators are doing. You are upset with what's happening behind the scenes, where you are not used to, when you are not aware of what's happening behind the scenes with your website. And I think that those two plugins combined may really come in handy when you want to make sure that you really know what's happening with your website. Obviously, when it comes to activity log, those options are quite limited, but when it comes to members plugin, there's a lot of different options to check from. You can enable or disable the lore manager, you can allow multiple user roles to be assigned to a single role, you have an add-ons here. So I've only shared some basics with you that I think may come in handy in most of the basic needs. And in my case scenario, I was really happy with the fact that I've prevented my secondary administrator from accessing the part of the website that I didn't want him to mess up with, and unfortunately he did. I guess this covers the tutorial. I hope that you guys realize how important it is to manage user activity log and how important it is to manage user roles. In case of user roles, the default roles are not that good, and I think that administrator role could be limited in case you were sure what kind of user roles you were assigning to any user. This concludes the tutorial. I hope you were satisfied with what I shared with you. In case you had any questions, feel free to hit me up via the contact form, located on my website at wp-doing.com/blog, or just leave a comment down below in this YouTube video. I'll be as helpful as I can, and I am sure that this tutorial might have come in handy to you.